Well, Biden is out. Let's talk about it on Azimuth Podcast. I'm Barrett McNabb, and with me is Kimberly McNabb. So we all got the news at the same time yesterday, Sunday, that Biden has withdrawn officially from the Democratic nomination process for President of the United States. And I tell you, there has been calls for this ever since his disastrous performance in the debate last month, but more and more people have been telling him to get out, and Democratic donors have refused to give money up and down the ballot. So they're not only not giving to the presidential campaign, they're not giving to Senate or to congressional campaigns, while Biden was really giving the glare and stare of "get off my lawn, I'm staying in, to fight this thing." But he has finally capitulated.
Yeah, 35 members of Congress were telling him to get out. So the deal is done. Now, there are a lot of questions that can be asked about this. First of all, he posted on X,
Right.
Which I'm sure a lot of left-leaning people were opposed to Elon Musk buying Twitter. So good job, Elon.
Yeah, and Elon even said, "See, I'm still relevant." I mean, he put on his own X and his own profile, "I'm still relevant." For all those who say X is not relevant anymore, the news came on X.
Yep, and with no speech, no video, no news outlet on X. He did say that he would make some appearance later this week, which would be good because. Who was it? Was asking, we need proof of life by 5 p.m. today.
Yeah, Lauren Boebert was like, we need proof of life by 5 p.m. from Joe Biden because we haven't seen him or heard from him, and all we have is this, multiple X posts.
Yeah. Also, it was noted that it was on his personal letterhead, not the presidential letterhead. So I don't know if there's something to read from that. And then we're not going to read the whole letter. There are some conspiracy theories out there whether or not the signature is actually his. Just a conspiracy theory. But also, one thing I noticed when it was read aloud on several podcasts was for the good of the party and the country. He listed the good of the party first. So kind of indicates to you which good he actually cares about.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things that I have a problem with this entire time is that the debate finally showed the American public who Joe Biden actually is and the cognitive decline that he has had. There have been rumors, there have been, snapshots of Biden wandering away from G7 leaders to go stare in a random direction, to not being sure when to sit down. I mean, we had fun with all of those things. The fact that he tripped all the time and fell down, especially at the Air Force Academy, and just completely eating it. He had to get a set of baby stairs installed into the
and the moon shoe looking thing.
Yeah, the moon shoes, but he had to get a set of baby stairs installed in Air Force One because he couldn't climb the standard set of stairs that everybody else is able to use. So there has just been this cognitive decline, and the Democratic Party, the Vice President of the United States, the congressional leaders, donors, surrogates, the media have all been lying to the American public just about how bad his cognitive decline has been. And so we need to start there, that the Democrats have been caught.
Right.
The Democrats have been caught.
Well, also with Kamala, in the letters in which the X post that Biden said he was no longer seeking the nomination, he didn't endorse Kamala Harris right away. It was a subsequent post about 20, 30 minutes later. So now she's kind of being endorsed by a lot of people, not everybody.
Right.
Former President Obama has not endorsed her.
Nope.
In his post, he said that the Democratic National Convention will pick the best candidate. Not saying her.
Right. I don't think Pelosi has.
Pelosi,
hasn't
Schumer,
endorsed her.
several people have not endorsed her. Now there are several potential VP candidates for Kamala Harris that, Shapiro from Pennsylvania and Kelly from Arizona. they have endorsed her. I'm like, well, if you're a potential VP pick for her, yeah, of course
Right.
you're going to endorse her.
Right. I can promise you that as soon as this happened, every single governor, senator, congressman, influential person who has a staff did a wargaming session with their staff and did either pro-con lists or just sent out some pulse of whether or not they would be able to win at the DNC convention next month. I believe it's the 19th through the 22nd, August 19th through the 22nd. And I can promise you that before they sent out an endorsement of Harris, they did a calculus of themselves on whether or not they would be able to beat her at the national convention. Those that decided no are the ones that endorsed her, in my opinion. If you haven't seen an endorsement yet, then either they're thinking about it or they just want to see who is going to come out on top and then support and potentially be a VP pick.
Yeah. Alex Soros
Right.
Endorses her, so I don't think she's going to have a money problem.
No.
But, we got Elon Musk on Trump's side.
Right. Well, I mean, I think from reports that I read, as soon as Biden on the afterthought tweets, I like to call them the afterthoughts of endorsing Harris for president. But the big thing is she took in like $40 million in the announcement from Biden throughout the evening on Sunday. And so it's really kind of interesting to see the Democrat donors that said, look, I'm not giving if Biden's at the ticket, then they have changed their mind. And so it's kind of interesting to see that dichotomy of really, I feel Biden was dragged out of this race kicking and screaming.
I think the right golden parachute benefits package was offered to him in some shape or fashion, because we know Schumer's approached him,
Yep.
Pelosi's approached him. So at some point, someone concocted the right benefits package for him to leave. Like, okay, yeah, you can go ahead and pardon Hunter after the election, but before
Right.
you leave, that's fine. We're cool with that. Okay. Jill can go teach learning to learn at Delaware State.
Or any other college. I mean,
yeah,
is she going to be at Georgetown? Is she going to be at Harvard? I mean, she's
and get her name on the building, and Hunter can sell his finger paintings. And,
Right.
So, yeah, he's going to keep helping the Biden family out.
Yeah, the two heartburn that I have with this, number one is the lie. Again, I'm going to reiterate the lie that has been told to the American public. Even Kamala Harris saying that he runs circles around us in cabinet meetings. He hasn't had a cabinet meeting in months, right?
Yeah.
So the cabinet is all the secretaries, Secretary of Defense, Secretary of the Interior, Transportation. Everybody has been having a lack of guidance or leadership. Now the Chief of Staff is obviously providing some guidance to them, but still, without having a cabinet meeting, you're insulating Biden. The second heartburn that I have is that he has disenfranchised almost 15 million people that participated in the Democrat primaries and caucus that have been throughout this year. And their voice no longer matters.
Yeah, I mean, come on. Oh, Trump's a threat to democracy, but we're not letting 15 million people's voice count?
Yeah, I mean, literally, if you participated in the Democrat caucus or primary, your vote has just been thrown away. And
this on top of them trying to get Trump's name off ballots in multiple states
exactly,
as well,
exactly.
Which is also seeming a little undemocratic.
Well, I mean, the DNC changed about 60 rules to keep anybody from primarying against Biden. So, for example, Dean Phillips, he went to New Hampshire, and the DNC changed the rules for the New Hampshire primary that if whoever won delegates from New Hampshire, those delegates would automatically go to Joe Biden. So it doesn't matter if you win them and you're your own candidate primary. They changed the rules so that those delegates would go to Joe Biden. They changed the rules to make it virtually impossible for RFK Jr. To
Who
primary.
had to switch parties.
He had to become an independent just to
get disowned by his family, basically.
Exactly. And I have huge problems with this, and if you are a Democrat, you should have huge problems with this as well. I understand, you were probably demoralized, that Biden was your ticket and your candidate, and you were saddened by the debate and saddened by all of the other confusion that was surrounding it. But you should be furious
that you were lied to for so many years about his state.
Exactly. That you were that you were lied to, but also you should be furious that the lie of his cognitive decline wasn't told to you, and you didn't have any other choices available to you because the DNC fixed it so that Biden would be the nominee. And you were not able to actively go and have debates with Dean Phillips and RFK Jr. and things like that.
And hear their voices, yes.
Marianne Williams, I mean, who, I don't know who voted for her, but still, she got disenfranchised too as a candidate.
Yeah, well, even Jill Stein called this undemocratic.
Yeah.
So, my mom was telling me about her coworkers. She overheard them in the locker room, and unfortunately, they fall into the 1/3 of Democrats who think that the attempted assassination
on Trump
9 days ago was staged, which is ridiculous. If you see the close-ups of his ears lay flat by his head, okay, and if you've ever shot a gun at a target, you know how easy it is to miss. And if he is such the narcissist that the media claims he is, do you think he's really going
to risk it?
To risk a sympathy vote to be that far to millimeters into his cranium? No, he might. If a true narcissist might send someone else to have that happen to them, but not the narcissist that everyone loves to claim that Trump is.
Exactly.
So unfortunately, they fall into that category. But guess what? You should be mad too that other options weren't available to you. Okay? And also, it makes me sick. These people work in manufacturing. Guess which party wants more manufacturing in the United States? The Republican Party. So if you hate your job, well, guess what? You can't find another job because there's no other manufacturing in your area for you to go to and work at. So it's just to cut your nose off to spite your face. It's absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah, this is really. I want to say it's unprecedented because it's not unprecedented. I mean, Joe Biden is being compared to Lyndon Johnson, for not seeking re-election. In fact, that's what we saw. I'm not seeking re-election. You did seek re-election. You sought re-election. You went through a full primary, knowing damn well that you shouldn't be in the job. You shouldn't be behind the desk. But you went through the full primary. Johnson got out after March. He lost New Hampshire, did poorly, and he backed out right then and there. And so that was at 68.
Yeah, 68. Yeah. So he didn't rob millions of primary voters of their choice.
But Biden did. Biden disingenuously went through the entire primary and caucus process in order to secure delegates and has just thrown all that away and blocked anybody from even challenging him.
Who sounds like a narcissist now?
Well, I mean, this is not democracy. This is just the antithesis of democracy. And if I'm very mad. I'm not a Democrat. I'm a Republican, but I am mad for you, and you should be outraged as well that you have been robbed.
Yes. Because come on. Would you rather hear Trump debate Robert F. Kennedy or Trump versus Dean Phillips or Trump versus Kamala Harris? Which one sounds more intellectually stimulating?
Right. Well, so now, we don't know if Kamala is going to be the actual nominee. She's probably a leading candidate because they're going to go into the convention and figure that out there. But still, Trump has said, well, since I had agreed to the next debate being on ABC with Biden, Trump is like, well, all bets are off now because I agreed to debate with Biden. So he's now wanting to do Fox News as the next debate location, whoever that candidate is going to be. Now, the mainstream media has all said, oh, he wants to go to friendly territory. Fox isn't always friendly to Trump. Fox calls it as it is. I mean, if you look at some of the 2016 debates, the moderators were Megyn Kelly being one of them. They were tough. They were asked pointed questions and weren't intimidated at all. So to say that Fox is just friendly territory, I don't think that's true.
Trump did the debate with Biden on CBS, was it?
CNN.
CNN, yeah. So, come on. He's already played one side of the aisle. Fair is fair. But anyway, if the debate does happen, I think that Trump should hold Kamala Harris just as accountable for the policies as he would Biden, because, who's supposed to be working closer with President Biden than anyone else? Kamala Harris. Who's, quote, the borders are? Kamala Harris.
Disaster.
In charge of NASA, like all these different things. So quiz her on policy, and President Trump, as much as we personally love the rhetoric and the name calling and the jokes, I think he should keep the same exact strategy that he had with the debate with Biden. Like, she's going to do the word salad. Let her do the word salad for everyone to see.
Exactly. One of the big things that Trump has pivoted on, and I think he's gotten some excellent advice, is to your point, is to just hammer the policies. And again, with her being the border czar, being the first job that she was tasked with, being securing the southern border, she is an absolute disaster. Lester Holt said, you haven't been to the border? And she said, I have been to the border. And he says, you have not been to the border.
Yeah, she kept saying we, and then she goes, well, I haven't been to Europe either. I'm like, you're the vice president of the United States and you haven't been to Europe? What? But
has nothing to do with the border.
Yeah, that's totally irrelevant. Like, I haven't been to Disneyland either. But it's like, come on, every conservative podcaster, including us, have been to the border. Robert F. Kennedy Jr. has been to the border. Who hasn't been to the border?
Elon Musk went to the border.
Yeah, come on.
So the thing that Trump needs to focus on, because the mainstream media, CNN, MSNBC, have all said, well, she's going to get to use her prosecutor and she's going to prosecute Trump during debates. Again, they're assuming she's the nominee, and she's not yet. But let's just go ahead and play that game. Trump, all he has to do is counter with policy.
Yes.
Her policy is the same as Biden's, and it was a failed policy. The food going up, the gasoline going up, the undocumented immigrants, illegal immigrants coming across the border, flooding into the United States, bringing additional crime. Those policies, she has to own them too.
Yes,
because it's the Biden-Harris ticket, and so anyway, she needs to do this. Now let's talk about the calls for Biden to resign.
Yes, I've seen where some conservative congressmen have called for Biden to resign. I don't know.
Yeah, what's your
I
opinion?
I guess the policies are going to be the same whether it's Harris or Biden, and I think it might be the same. But
well, here's my thoughts. Here's my thoughts on it. So the argument that is being made is that if Joe Biden is not fit to be able to run a campaign to be the president for the next 4 years, and his mental health is declining, and he can't do it. Should he be in the job right now? Should he resign right now? And because who's in charge of the nuclear codes? If he's Mr. Magoo, and being a fuddy-duddy, bumping into walls and stuff like that, should he be in charge of the nuclear codes? If you recall back in the 2020 election, one of the things that Milley, who was chairman of the Joint Chief of Staff, publicly really was very treasonous. Pelosi had said, "Hey, take the nuclear codes away from him," and General Milley, just he called various generals, Chief of Staff of Defense in China and Russia, and said, "Look, there's no issue with these nuclear codes. We're not going to let him do anything." Now, announcing to your adversaries that you have taken those away, there were many Congress representatives and senators that said that was treasonous. The last days of Trump's presidency to be able to secure that, and really Pelosi kind of did that herself as well to secure those. So if what's good for the goose is good for the gander, has somebody secured the nuclear codes from Biden? Is he able to make cognitive decisions about the defense of the United States? I mean, let's put aside what
are our enemies thinking about
exactly.
this?
I mean, there has been confusion that has set in, and I am glad he made that decision. I do not feel as though he would have been able to do another 4.5 years, because we have 6 months of this year left, and then moving on into the new 4-year term. But still, this is not a time period where a letter on X is appropriate. I think
it's so grave. It's way too grave to be only out on X.
And it caught his staff by surprise as well. He had a small circle of staff on his Delaware home that he was surrounded with, and it was just the small circle, and then he didn't let anybody know. In fact, he didn't even let his vice president know.
Of course, a lot of people are joking, did he know when he woke up this morning?
Yeah, did he even know? But still, the point I'm trying to make is it was a surprise to everybody. And in the federal government, in the executive branch, there shouldn't be any surprises that are launched like that. I mean, we just did, the Secretary of Defense, Austin, got publicly admonished and admitted that it was wrong of him to keep his cancer diagnosis a secret, and his being admitted into a hospital intensive care unit, having to go through surgery and stuff like that.
And he was MIA for a while.
He was MIA, and it was a surprise that people didn't know. And I've always said, in the Army, above every single telephone mounted, a piece of paper is mounted on the wall, and above every telephone it says who else needs to know. And so in this instance, having it just be this mic drop of "I quit, I'm out, peace," that's the wrong way to do this.
Well, Trump was right when he told Biden in the debate, you don't ever fire anybody.
Right. Well, he fired himself. He fired himself, or self-selected himself to be voted off the island. But this is just absolutely amazing. I think over the next 30 days or so, as we get to the DNC convention in Chicago, this is going to be really absolutely just amazing. I think this is, again, it's not unprecedented. In 1958, we had Johnson removing himself from the race. The last time we had a contested convention for the DNC, it was also in Chicago, and it was 1952, and the round of voting that occurred, because there was not a nominee, but the round of voting that occurred went to a contested convention. Didn't go through the first round, went to the second and third, and the candidate, you don't even know his name, because he ran against Dwight D. Eisenhower and got crushed.
I mean, that's like following the best comic in the world.
Right.
Like, I don't want to go after that guy. Like, seriously, you want to go after a World War II hero?
The supreme Allied commander of the European theater? Yeah.
No, thank you. I know my limits.
That would be pretty rough. So, we want to hear your thoughts. We really want to hear your thoughts on this, and we want you to like this video because the YouTube algorithm really only makes the video go further and further and further unless you hit that like button. And if you haven't subscribed, please do so. But we definitely are wanting you to hit that like buttons for that YouTube algorithm. But we just saw this. We got the news obviously the same time each and every one of you, and so we wanted to get this particular podcast out as soon as possible.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for listening. If you enjoy our show with all the stories we share, we would love your support.
And it's as easy as clicking that subscribe or follow button. This will ensure you never miss an episode and keeps us bringing you these important stories. Your support makes a huge difference. Thank you so much for being part of our podcast family.
Thanks, and keep tuning in.
But let's go ahead and transition into what the convention is going to look like. So again, if
chaos,
it's going to look like chaos. I mean, so if you're now joining us, welcome back to Azimuth Podcast. I'm Barrett McNabb, and with me is Kimberly McNabb, and we're going to talk about the clown show that is awaiting the Democrat Party in the Democratic National Convention that is going to take place in Chicago, August 19th through the 22nd. And let me tell you, this is going to be this comedy of errors as the Democrats step all over themselves. I mean, yeah. I still cannot believe that this is occurring, but this is what's going to happen. Today we're going to just break down that convention committee's nomination process for 2024 and how to get their presidential candidate. So again, with Biden dropping out and endorsing Vice President Kamala Harris, there's a lot to unpack. So let's really kind of just dive right in. As far as the DNC nomination process, how's it going to start, Kimberly?
Well, the DNC nomination process begins with delegate selection through primaries and caucuses. These delegates are pledged to specific candidates based on election results in each state.
Yeah, so effectively, that's where all the primaries and the caucuses and all of those delegates and again, Dean Phillips and RFK Jr. had a lot of heartburn with that process because the DNC made it almost impossible for anybody to run against Joe Biden. And that's really sad because probably if they had primary debates like the Republican Party did, we probably would have seen earlier the cognitive abilities and decline of Joe Biden.
Joe Biden arguing against either one. I mean, Robert F. Kennedy Jr. I mean, just there's no contest whatsoever.
Yeah, I mean, so really, this whole system has kind of been disingenuous from the get-go. Everybody coalesced around Biden, and obviously it was the wrong idea. I mean, not only do you have surrogates and politicians, but you have actors and actresses that are jumping on the bandwagon, running because their view of political science is so profound that we should all listen to them.
Yes, I'm sure they encounter so many day-to-day problems in their $45 million mansion, and they haven't had to walk a real street in 30 years or something. And their maids do all their shopping and cleaning and whatnot, and driving their kids to school. Like, come on, go get real problems like the rest of us.
Exactly. I mean, they do not represent the common person and in the United States. And so I just find it interesting when they're able to give their giant bird's eye view and expect all of us little
all those simpletons
to fall in line. But once all the primaries and caucuses are completed, they get the DNC gets this pre-convention delegate count, and it gives them an idea of which candidates have the most pledged supports heading into the convention. So here is the actual numbers of what each candidate has so far. So Biden has 3,897 pledged delegates. That's a lot. Dean Phillips, who has just kept going, he's been a good sport about putting his head down and keep shuffling forward, even though the DNC has definitely been punching him in the gut as much as he has. He actually has 4 delegates. 4 pledged delegates. So he could be a contender because he has a legitimate claim to say that I actually have delegates. And then Jason Palmer, this one surprised me because
like who?
He's from American Samoa, and he has 3 delegates. And again, we did a profile on every what we thought was every announced candidate, and Jason Palmer kind of came out.
Slipped by us.
He slipped by us. I'm like, who are you? But anyway, he has 3 delegates. So as he goes into this convention, he has a claim. So, Kamala Harris, has been endorsed by Biden,
right?
As his, as his endorsement to be the candidate. But just make this clear, she is not the candidate yet,
right?
She is going to be a nominee during this convention, and it's kind of interesting. Who are some of the people that have jumped out of the gate pretty much and endorsed Kamala Harris?
Clinton was pretty quick. Alex Soros, who is George Soros' son,
right.
So he's going to bring a lot of money, endorses her. But Pelosi has not endorsed her yet. Schumer's not endorsed her yet. Obama put a post out saying the Democratic National Convention is going to select the best candidate, not necessarily naming Kamala Harris. So
right.
That is interesting.
Yeah, it's kind of been interesting. So there's been a lot of governors and Congress and House representatives and senators that have come out in support. Gavin Newsom was one that jumped right away and
he's going to toe the line because he's totally going to eye 2028 or 2032. I mean, dude, keep your eye on that slithery, sulfur smelling
well, yeah, so
snake oil salesman.
He may try and get a VP spot. I mean, there's a bunch of people that are going to be jockeying for VP slots, but there's some governors that have not endorsed Kamala Harris, and the governor of Michigan, Whitmer, has not endorsed her. So she may try and throw her hat in the ring, which would absolutely be interesting. Definitely, Dean Phillips has said that he's going to make sure that people know he should be the nominee. I mean, Kamala doesn't have any delegates. Dean Phillips has 4. He actually has some. So the biggest thing that I'm sad is that all of the people that voted in the primaries and in the caucus, almost 15 million, 14 million change, they've all been disenfranchised. And now basically 4,000 people are going to get to decide who your nominee is.
Yeah, not you.
Not you. So your vote doesn't matter anymore. And it's now going to be some of the political elites that are going to decide for you what's going to happen. And, it's not unprecedented. I mean, this obviously happened in 1968 and 1952 as well. But still, this is...
It gives this air of this back smoky room where just a couple, wealthy kingmakers get to decide the fate of the world. So
right. So what's going to happen at the convention?
Well, at the convention, the first major event is the roll call vote, where each state announces its delegate count, and those delegates are pledged to support.
Right. Now, if a candidate secures a majority of the pledged delegates on that first ballot, they become the nominee, which is pretty simple, right?
Well, it gets interesting if no candidate wins a majority on the first ballot.
Okay. Well, that makes sense because if there's not a majority, then obviously we need to get to a second vote. But if that candidate gets the majority, the convention just moves on to the second ballot, and then here's where superdelegates come into play. And you hear the term superdelegates in the media, but I mean, I've never actually known or understood.
What's the difference?
Yeah. So a delegate goes through a selection process. You have pledged delegates, and they're selected through state primaries and caucuses, and they're pledged to support a specific candidate based on the results of those elections. So, for example, the Texas Democrat caucus or party had a meeting, and the delegates were elected at that. So you don't get to vote for them on your primary ballot or anything like that. When we're choosing and you're voting for your primary, you're voting for your the primaries for your House of Representatives and senators and local school boards. These delegates are not on those ballots. They're at a separate convention, and you have to be either invited or a member of the Democrat Party in order to participate in those. But then there's binding candidates as well. So they're pledged candidates that generally required to vote for the candidate whom they are pledged on the first ballot at the national convention. Now, it's kind of interesting because in 2016, there was this campaign that Ted Cruz actually did. So Trump definitely had the vast majority of the delegates that were going to vote for him, but oddly, and really this doesn't happen a lot. Ted Cruz tried to make the case to have the delegates switch to him. And he, in his speech at the RNC convention in 2016, said that the delegates needed to vote their conscience. And a lot of people really found that to be disingenuous because, again, Trump won enough delegates in the primary, so people voted for him to be the nominee. And Ted Cruz, kind of at the tail end there, said, well, you guys can vote for me, and we'll get this Donald Trump guy out of the way. So in the light of that, a lot of states passed a bunch of laws that said that if you're a delegate, you need to be pledged to whoever won the primary of that state.
Well, yeah, that makes me a little sad because I'm a pretty big Ted Cruz fan. I listen to his podcast a lot. But, you have to imagine, what if the Democrats did something like that?
Right.
I mean, we wouldn't like that either.
Wouldn't like that either. But oddly enough, in this convention that just happened last week, Ted Cruz got up there during his speaking time and fully endorsed Donald Trump, which obviously was different than the 2016. But there's kind of two types of these pledged delegates: the district level delegates, which are allocated based on the primary or caucus results within each congressional district, depending upon the state. And then there's the at-large delegates, and those delegates are allocated based on statewide results. So some are inside a congressional district, and some are totally straight statewide. Now, the pledged party leader and elected official delegates are including local party leaders and elected officials who are pledged to support a candidate based on the primary caucus results. Again, they've changed these rules to make sure that there aren't any wild cards that are coming out. Now, their role at the convention is they're the primary ones, and so this would be the 3,000 people or 3,800 people that Biden currently has, who conceivably he has now released because they're not voting for him. Right. But they're responsible for, that first ballot voting. And the pledged delegates vote for their pledged candidate on the first ballot of the convention. If the candidate receives the majority of the delegate votes on the first ballot, that's it. They become the nominee. Now let's talk about these superdelegates. And
sounds special.
It does sound special. And I'll be honest, before doing a lot of the research on this, you hear the superdelegate used. I think news people just like to say superdelegate because, again, it just sounds cool. And so I didn't really know what they do, but you're about to learn what they do here. I always thought that it was like a super secret rich guy that had like 2,000 votes in his pocket that he could just dump down. And it turns out it's not like that. But still, they have unpledged delegates as well. Superdelegates are not selected through any primaries or caucus. They're party leaders and elected officials who are automatically given delegate status. So they're not chosen. And the two types of superdelegates, there are the Democrat National Committee members, so they're the members of the DNC, and then there are also Democrat governors, a lot of sitting governors, and Democrat members of Congress, senators and House of Representatives. And then there's also some distinguished party leaders, former presidents, vice presidents, and other DNC chairs. So their role at the convention is to participate in a second ballot voting. And they are undeclared. They can go any way they want. And so once that first ballot fails and we get to the second ballot, then the superdelegates get to come in. And they are obviously very influential because they're not a mom and dad who ran for a local Texas Democrat congressional district to be the delegate from county A of Texas, and so they're wearing their little cowboy hat and going up there, and they don't know really anything. These are influential people, and so they can really get up there and start influencing how these regular delegates are going to vote. And it gives them, a significant influence in this, which would now be a contested convention. But they're unbound by any primary results. They're free to support any candidate, and they don't have to support the will of the people. So again, it's that hey, to your analysis, which I love, that smoke-filled room. And people are just wheeling and dealing and trying to figure out who the Illuminati is going to have run the new world order. But so the big difference is, again, in these delegates. So they're bound now to vote for the primary caucus results on the first ballot. The superdelegates are not bound by anything. They can vote whoever they want to from the start. In the selection process, the delegates are selected through state primaries, and superdelegates are appointed based on their status. So they're these shadowy people, elected officials that you're talking about. And then the difference in their influence, delegates actually reflect the will of the voters in the primary and caucus, and the superdelegates provide experienced party leaders with a role in the nomination process, particularly in a contested convention. But this is changing for this particular convention because delegates, again, reflect the will of the voters in the primary caucuses, and the person that was elected in the primary was Joe Biden. So these delegates are no longer going to reflect the will of the voters.
Yeah.
So effectively, every single delegate
just a bunch of elites
just became a superdelegate. I mean, really, because they can vote for whoever they want to now.
Right.
And so this is going to be extremely interesting. But again, this structure is designed to balance the influence of grassroots voter preferences, which has now been thrown away. Yeah, it's been thrown away with the input of experienced party leaders, ensuring that the nominee has broad support within the party. And again, with Kamala Harris calling people, she was on the phone all day long yesterday with her staff. And, it's interesting, the media reports are trying to humanize her because they kind of said what was going on. So she's in her Howard University hoodie sweatshirt, and she's making hundreds of phone calls. She has her staff surrounding her. It goes in.
She's walking these streets.
The common man, getting their thoughts on all of this. And so the article went on to say that she made time to coordinate for lunch and dinner for her staff, and I can only imagine. That sounds awesome. Like she's taking care of her staff. She talked to another staff member and said, "Hey, go get lunch and dinner," and that's the coordination I'm sure she did.
Right.
But then it goes into their menu, and it talks about how she had, for lunch they had salad and sandwiches, and then dinner they had salad and pizza. And then it goes on to say that she had anchovies, which is her go-to topping for pizza, on a pizza. And she's just like us. It's just that she's on the phone calling people trying to secure her nomination to be on the ticket to run the free world.
Except
no big deal.
Yeah, she's never worked a real job before, but just like the rest of us.
Right. Well, anyway, so the convention, continues with additional rounds of voting until a candidate secures the majority. So it can be like the first round, and then the second round, the superdelegates come into play, and if they're still not a winner, then they have a third round. But these rounds, all the pledge delegates, again, can change their mind, but they're going to get a chance to change their mind from the very beginning. Because, again, in this process with Biden not being there, they don't have to vote for Biden because he's not there. He's not running anymore. And so they effectively get to be superdelegates, but their votes are going to allow for strategic endorsements and deals. I can promise you, I'm pretty sure it's illegal, but I can promise you there are people who are jockeying for ambassadorships.
Oh, yes.
Who are jockeying for government jobs, who are jockeying for cabinet positions, who are jockeying for undersecretary positions. I can tell you that the wheeling and dealing is going on right now.
Yeah.
And so FBI, go ahead and start looking at some of this stuff because, I'm pretty sure you're not really allowed to do that.
I don't know if I'd count on this FBI, but, this flexibility helps build a consensus and ensures that the nominee has broad support within the party.
Well, I hear you on that. It's just that it just seems so disingenuous. If you were a common person, which we are as well, we wanted a certain candidate. We participated in the primary process, and we voted for who we thought would be the best president and best represent our nation on the Republican side. And, we didn't get our candidate.
No.
Honestly, but we're happy with the other candidate, the current candidate as well. And this is the choice is being taken away. The person who you wanted to win is not there anymore. And so is the person going to have broad support within the party?
Yeah. I mean, she had lower approval rating than Biden.
Exactly. I mean, all of her, she's going to have the same policy. She's married. She's married to what happened these past 3.5 years.
Yeah.
She's got to own it, and
she probably wouldn't have changed a thing. Don't think, it's a different person, it's going to be different policy. Nope.
Probably not. And I can promise you, she's not going to throw Biden under the bus and say, I wouldn't have done it that way. Here's what I would do. No, she's going to have to own those policies as well, because her first task, again, was to be the border czar, and she failed miserably at it.
Yeah, and I don't want people to think, numbers in El Paso went down. No. They just shifted to Arizona and California, and that time of year, pretty much every year, it does go down a little bit, but they're still hitting record levels. So Don't be fooled by certain statistics.
Exactly. Well, statistics, I think it's Mark Twain said there's lies, there's damn lies, and then there's statistics. But anyway, once a candidate receives the majority, they're declared the nominee. And then the focus shifts to unifying the party and gearing up for the general election. And the interesting thing that we have about the general election is that it's, 114 days away?
I think it's like 106.
Okay, so November 5th.
Yes.
But once the election is, or once this caucus, nomination process is done, there's only like 74 days until the election. So now that person has to get up. So Kamala can't really run for president right now because she's not the nominee. And there could be other people. And to your point, I believe you said Obama has not endorsed her. He wants to see what happens at the convention.
Yeah,
if
he endorses her, I mean, it pretty much is set.
Right, but he wants to have a convention, and so Dean Phillips is gonna, unless he gets a deal to not mess up the wheels, and she says, look, you'll be the Secretary of State. I mean, unless he gets a deal, he's going to say, look, I actually have delegates that are actually pledged to me. He has pledged delegates. 4 pledged delegates that have to vote for him. If he doesn't get the majority in that first vote, they become unpledged and get to do whatever they want. But still, he's going to get a chance to stand up in front of all of those delegates and make his case. And the same thing, Gretchen Whitmer from Michigan is because she hasn't endorsed Kamala right away, she might throw her hat in the ring. And Obama wants to see what happens, which, at least you'd get some choices. It's not the public's choice. It's the delegate's choice. So if you have the ability to call your delegate and say, look, here's who I want you to vote for, which I think would be fair if each delegate went back to their group and said, hey, okay, who do you want me to?
Constituents.
Who do you want me to vote for? And Dean Phillips asked for a mini primary And the DNC said nope.
Well, of course not.
So, there was this. I saw an article that yesterday, Manchin, the senator from West Virginia, was thinking about re-registering as a Democrat, and because he became an independent, but re-registering as a Democrat and throwing his hat in the ring, and then promptly today has changed his mind. So I'm sure he got a phone call that said, "Hey, sit down, shut up, go in the corner and color some crayons," and stuff like that. But still, it's not unprecedented, but very few people alive today have experienced them, because again, the last time was 68, and the time before that was 1952 and 1968, and this is kind of unheard of. But no matter what, I want our viewing audience to understand: if you're a Democrat, you have been disenfranchised.
Yeah, you've been robbed.
Yeah, and so I'm sad for you. The Democrats, like to say that Donald Trump is a threat to democracy. This is a threat to democracy. The primary was a farce. The candidate was not mentally competent, and it was hidden from you. And now, a month out from the DNC convention, the candidate that you have voted for in the primary that was lied to has withdrawn.
Yep. And any debates that do happen with Kamala Harris, I do think that she should be held accountable for helping cover up Joe Biden's condition to the
She
American
straight up
public.
lied. Yeah, she straight up lied. I mean, she said, he runs circles around us in all of our staff meetings. We can't keep up with him. And that is not an exaggeration. That's not a tall tale. That is a lie. That is a deliberate lie that was orchestrated by this administration to hide the fact that Joe Biden should not be the president of the United States right now, or in the future. So this was all breaking news, and we wanted to get this out as soon as possible. But please leave a like. We really need these likes in order to get our message out. Subscribe if you haven't, and thank you so much for tuning into Azimuth Podcast.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for listening. If you enjoy our show with all the stories we share, we would love your support.
And it's as easy as clicking that subscribe or follow button. This will ensure you never miss an episode and keeps us bringing you these important stories. Your support makes a huge difference. Thank you so much for being part of our podcast family.
Thanks, and keep tuning in.